The period of Lent is supposed to be a time of fasting and reflection leading up to the Easter weekend. We're supposed to prepare ourselves during this 40-day time period in order to fully appreciate the events of Good Friday, Jesus' crucifixion. During this Lenten season, I'm doing a series of devotions based on the 7 last words that Jesus uttered while on the cross. Today's devotional focuses on the second set of those words. Luke records in chapter 23 of his gospel the following. One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God," he said, "since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." One of the themes of the arrest, trial, conviction, and crucifixion of Jesus was the continual mocking and insulting of him. Those who were involved and those who were bystanders had heard the claims that Jesus was the Messiah, the Son of God, and they threw those claims right back in Jesus' face. They did not believe the claims, and they, like the Pharisees throughout the Gospels, wanted to see some proof. Actually, I don't think they wanted to see anything but Jesus die a horrible, humiliating, and painful death. So Jesus was crucified along with 2 criminals, and the one criminal joined in the mockery. Of course, he had an angle on this. If you are the Messiah, save yourself and us too. The second criminal had a very different take on the situation. When you read his words, you can't help but believe that he had some level of faith, that he understood that Jesus was more than a man nailed to a cross, that there was a connection between Jesus and God. And most importantly, that whatever was happening here wasn't the end. He asks specifically for Jesus to remember him when he enters his kingdom. This criminal believed that Jesus' death wasn't the end of Jesus. There's nothing in the Gospels that explains this. Was this man a follower of Jesus? What had he heard about Jesus, and how and when and where? We don't know. But we do know that he, at the very least, understood that there was something different, something special about Jesus, and he wanted in on that. What is also interesting is that this criminal didn't see this as necessarily his last day either. There was something that Jesus could do about his situation, that there was something more than a eulogy that Jesus would remember about this man. I suspect that this criminal didn't have much of a developed theology of Jesus. He would have failed the systematic theology course at seminary. I suspect that he hadn't memorized the Torah, and he most certainly had broken some of the law, otherwise he wouldn't be nailed to a cross alongside Jesus. So in the eyes of his community, he was a big-time sinner, deserving of death. Yet here he is, defending Jesus, admitting his own guilt, and asking Jesus to remember him. Whatever his deficiencies were, whatever his sins were, whatever his lack of understanding was, he knew that Jesus was special and he wanted in. And what was Jesus' response? A big capital yes. No quiz, no catechism, no theological exam, no preconditions, hoops to jump through, or actions to take. It was simply, today you will be with me in paradise. I think that we tend to complicate faith, to turn it into some kind of test, to throw in all kinds of roadblocks, to make sure only the truly worthy get in. If we look at Jesus' life, he welcomed with open arms the struggling, the downtrodden, the deeply sinful. It was those who were self-righteous and overly religious who caught Jesus' scorn and rebuke. Now, don't misunderstand me. We are responsible for what we know or don't know. Jesus isn't interested in us just traipsing through life oblivious to our purpose, calling, obligations, gifts, relationships, etc. You just have to read the rest of the Bible to know that ignorance does not get us off the hook. But I do think that sometimes we just make it too complicated to be a follower of Christ. Jesus stands there with his arms wide open, and we, like his disciples, with the little children, push people aside. I haven't got a clue what paradise will be like. I'm hoping I get to jam with David on the harp. But whatever that eternity looks like, I want to make sure that I share it with as many people as possible and not be the one who creates unnecessary barriers. The criminal understood that Jesus was more than a man. He also understood his own guilt and admitted it, and he simply asked Jesus to remember him. The answer was probably far more significant than the criminal could have ever dreamed of. Eternity in paradise with Jesus.